Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Sessions. Today, I am so honored to be blessed with the presence of two awesome business owners who are doing their own thing. We can't wait to bring them into the topic, but I want to introduce the topic first. And this topic is really important for every business owner, business operator, or even product managers. The topic today is when and how to kill a product or service. Yeah, I know we always talk about building and growing, and sometimes building and growing happens when we eliminate products and services that just aren't really contributing to our profitability. It happens to the best of us. I've done this a million times where there's something that worked 5 years ago that just isn't working anymore. It's not as profitable as it could be or should be. And we spend way too much time focusing on that thing. How do you get rid of those things? How do you get rid of those services? How do you get rid of those products that just aren't elevating yourself into a more profitable space? And that's the topic of today: how to kill products and services that just don't make sense for your business anymore. So today we're going to introduce a couple of my guests. We're going to go one by one. Carrie, we're going to bring you into the circle here. Will you please tell us who you are and what you do?
My name is Carrie Byers, and I have a company called Premier Showgirls, which is based in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I provide showgirls and talent of all kinds for events all over the country these days, but primarily convention-based events, booths, trade shows, galas, customer appreciation parties, birthday parties, weddings. I kind of do it all. I laugh and say the only thing I haven't had showgirls at in Las Vegas is a wake. Because we've done birthday parties and weddings. We've even had girls at a bat mitzvah.
So. I'm telling you right now, I doubt there's anybody listening who has never been to a trade show in Las Vegas and probably not seen some of your team. So yep. That's probably a fairly safe statement, but I appreciate you being on here today. And we also want to introduce Marcus. Marcus, give us a little intro into you and what you do.
Yeah, Marcus Manderson, aka DeFingers, is the social media online presence name, and I'm a music composer and producer. I used to play in church, former church musician, playing piano and Hammond organ in the Baptist Church in the DC, Northern Virginia area, and shifted when the pandemic hit to sync licensing, which is getting music into TV, movies, video games, things like that. And the current journey is a combination of sync licensing and movie trailer music. So I've composed music for Disney, a Disneyland theme park. I've composed for museum exhibits for National Geographic and Smithsonian. Composed for TV shows, things like that. So been enjoying the journey and aiming for more along the way.
I love it. We've got the showgirl princess and we've got the church pianist all joining together to talk about business, which is funny. Carrie and I were talking earlier about how no matter what industry, no matter what vertical you're in, business is business. And when you think about these topics and these themes that we're going to talk about today, it really is relevant across the board with every business. Marcus, we got you on the big screen. Give us a little bit of insight into where have you had to face this problem with your industry, with what you're doing? When is a time where you've had to kill a product or service?
Yeah, well, the pandemic was sort of helpful on one side because I was playing in church, and the plan was to play in church and then full time forever until the end of days. And once the pandemic hit, church went virtual, and I started enjoying time with family. I have a wife and kids, and I started sleeping in on Sundays, and having all of Mother's Day and Father's Day to spend with family, and not have to wait until I got out of church until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Love it.
In addition to the time that I was spending that wasn't really fairly compensated, learning songs, going to rehearsals, teaching choir parts, things like that. It was just a lot of time that I wasn't really getting return on value on that side of things. So the pandemic really helped to get that focus and that clarity on that end of things. So that was a service that I didn't choose to end, but it ended. The opportunity did come a couple years
Right.
later, about a year and a half ago, to return to play in church, and I had to respectfully decline that opportunity because it was just something that a service that I no longer saw
Right on.
on the path for myself.
That totally makes sense. Carrie, you and I had a long conversation prior to this coming live here about the fact that in your type of industry where you're providing entertainment, sometimes you'll find things that are working one year that just don't work the next year. Sometimes you'll find different needs from the different client types. What kind of things have you seen in your industry as you've been trying to adapt to how the world changes all the time in entertainment?
So I'm very lucky in that showgirls are kind of iconic to Las Vegas. So I'm always going to have clients who request showgirls, and I have numerous repeat clients that come to me year after year for showgirls.
Right.
But there's so many other things that I can offer: go-go dancers, stilt walkers, just costume characters, brand ambassadors. Like, it's kind of endless here.
Yeah.
I just have to kind of look into my crystal ball and see what the trends are going to be for coming events. Like, is it going to be a year of disco events or Great Gatsby themed events or futuristic events? So it's kind of like a crapshoot here in
Yeah.
Vegas as to what the trends are going to be. And sometimes it's easy. Like the year 20, when it went into 2020, I was like,
Yeah.
well, it's the roaring 20s. That's easy. Flappers and gangsters are easy.
Yeah.
And I kind of judged that. But sometimes it's just a crapshoot. Like, do I invest in these props and costumes for this one client that wants like a disco theme? Is this going to be a trend?
Right.
Like, is it really going to be a trend, or do I rent them for the event and call it a day?
Right. Right. And here's the question I've got for both of you. As you start thinking about trends and looking forward and trying to anticipate, what's going to be happening with your business or your industry moving forward, I think a lot of business founders struggle with this. They really kind of find that things are working for them right now, so why would I change? And then they keep holding on to things for far too long. Marcus, I'm curious what you feel about that, because I know that, again, business is business. How have you seen this trend affect people that you're working with now? I mean, you're working in a whole different space now. Are you seeing a trend like that where people are trying to capture what's about to happen in their space?
Yeah, I think there's sort of a trend where there's a huge focus right now on AI, obviously,
Right.
taking over a lot of the industry. So people are trying to figure out where that will take over in their industry. So on the music side, we're trying to figure out how can we use AI either to help us, or how will it replace whatever we're doing, or how can it help speed up our
Right.
workflow. So for me personally, I found a lot of productivity using some AI platforms, either directly with the software I use to make music, which is Logic, Apple's Logic Pro, and then the companies we work with. As far as staying on trends, there are always trends as far as advertising, music advertising and marketing campaigns. We're about to hit, we are in summer, so you have summer blockbusters. So there's trailers for all
Right.
that. There's marketing campaigns. Right now is a season where a lot of companies are getting their holiday campaigns, so Halloween and Christmas. Right now, we're doing a lot of music for that. So you got to tap into holiday season,
Wow.
because a lot of those campaigns start planning now for
Mhm.
Christmas and Halloween and things like that.
Yeah, I bet both of you are dealing with that.
Yeah.
So as you start to adapt to these upcoming events, upcoming things, how do you kind of taper off the things that are working right now?
For me, it's tapering off things that um, aren't working. So specifically on the music side, my main focus growing up, was to, like, I want to get in the studio with the artists,
Right.
Beyonce, whoever, Drake, pick an artist.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started learning about these other avenues about sync licensing and trailer music, and there's a lot. Not a lot easier, but there's a lot less competition. I mean, and a lot more opportunities to get music on a TV show than it is to get music on superstar album. So I had to shift that focus. And even working with um, independent artists, creating music for them. A lot of times I would send music to an artist and never hear back from them, as opposed to sending music to like a film director and getting feedback, or to a library that can help pitch and land things on opportunities. So it's the same work on my end, creating the music, but it's a better thing on the other side, where the music is actually being used, or at least being pitched, and has an opportunity to either create income or get opportunities. So
That makes
it's just
sense.
a
That
shift
makes
of
sense.
the client and the customer.
And how did you determine that? Because, I think that there's a lot of question as to who should be my ideal client. It sounds like for you, the client changed from A, the church, to B, who do you want to, I want to be in the studio with Beyonce and all these
Yeah.
people, and helping them produce backgrounds and vocals, things like that. When did you decide to make that shift in your client avatar to say, you know what, this is a pretty good target?
I think when the pandemic hit, a lot of that, the pandemic, like I was able to shift focus of music. Instead of putting all this energy into the church and learning other people's music, I
Right.
now had opportunity to create more of my own music. I had a lot more creativity output, and then started studying, where exactly can the music I'm creating be used, where it can be used and maybe broadcast on a larger platform. And that's where I started finding out more about sync licensing, and then that sort of blossomed into trailer music and
That's
opportunity.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Now, Carrie, you used to work as a showgirl, and so you've had kind of been on both sides of that whole industry. As you took over the reins and kind of started managing this business, what were some things that you immediately saw that you wanted to change about how your industry was maybe viewed, or how you could put it to market and make it easier to acquire the services?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Kind of loaded.
Yeah, I took over a company that was previously existing that I had actually worked for.
Yeah.
And the problem that I saw with the way the company was previously run was that she only did showgirls. Occasionally, I think she would book like an Elvis impersonator,
Right.
but my first goal was to expand, because I knew the event industry here. I knew the talent industry, and I knew that there were so many other things that I could offer
Yeah.
and build my client base offering these other things, because not everybody wants showgirls when they come to Vegas.
Right.
But if I got a client that was reaching out for go-go dancers, maybe the next time they come to Vegas, they know me, they know that I offer showgirls. Well, let's try the showgirls. My whole goal was just to grow and expand and offer more costumes, more colors, because a lot of, like, I did acquire a good amount of costumes, but I
Right.
knew I needed more colors to accommodate company colors. So I did do some research and find out, and this sounds really weird to me, I would Google company colors and what the top company colors were.
Interesting.
So, and of course, there's the red and the blue and the black and the pink, but it really doesn't stray very far from that. Like, it really doesn't. There's green and orange comes up, but
Right.
so that was my goal in expanding that and making the costumes more interchangeable, so I could accommodate different colors in one costume look.
Right.
If you understand what I mean, so I can accommodate for the companies that were coming to me.
Now, this makes a lot of sense, because you're anticipating clients coming to Vegas, and some clients come every year. Some clients are every 5 years, 3, 5, 10 years. As you anticipate, that business, I'm really curious, and honestly, for those listening, I want to just pose the question to all of you, and I'd love to see some in the chat, just kind of what your thoughts are. It looks like Cassandra Rosen, she chimed in and said, "This is a huge mistake. So many small businesses make. Everything has an expiration date." So there are you both of you, it sounds like, have done a really good job of anticipating change, anticipating what is going to happen in your business. I just wanted to poke out here in the audience. We have a podcast that I record multiple times a week that comes out. We have 3 episodes come out every week, called the Growth and Scaling Podcast. I love the fact that we have three completely different types of business owners in this panel right now discussing things. I literally have interviewed over 350 business founders to date on this show, and almost every one of them talk about the types of things you're talking about. It's something that I've found is relative between every business founder. And so for those listening, these are issues that are relevant no matter what your industry is. You have to be able to look ahead and anticipate what changes are coming down the pipe. You have to be able to look behind you and say, this worked for me, but it's not working so well anymore. I really want to focus here. And the biggest thing that I hear about from almost every founder or operator that I talk to is the fact that when you anticipate changes correctly, and when you can adapt and spend less resources on the things that maybe are legacy, that really aren't building enough value for you anymore, you have an entire revenue shift that is positive because you're focusing on what demand is asking for. Carrie, can you give us an example of something that you've maybe modified or tweaked because the demand was asking for something new, even though a predecessor might have said, this is the only thing we're good at, or this is the only thing that's going to make us money?
So when I first took over the company 9 years ago, there was this thing that was very popular called a strolling table, which is a huge table that's up on wheels that the girl or guy in costume gets into. And the table is decked out with whatever tablecloths, whatever trim that matches the costume. And it's a table. So she can stroll around wherever she is with whatever. I put anything from swag to desserts on this table and stroll around.
I gotcha.
That was a huge thing to store. It was
I've seen those.
Yes. It's a huge thing to store. It's a huge thing to maneuver through casinos, through convention halls.
Right.
And it was, for me at the time, it was fairly profitable. Everybody else was doing it. I felt like I needed to do it, although it was a huge headache because at the time it was just me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
And if my husband was off work, I'm like, hey, you got to come help me with this table. I'm carting it all the way through Caesars to the very last ballroom.
And nothing is convenient in a casino.
No. So it ended up getting damaged at an event, to the point where I couldn't repair it. I had to invest in another one or wash my hands of that.
Right.
And that was a fairly easy decision because yes, I did use it, but I looked back, I looked at the books, and I really didn't use it enough to make it worth all the stress and the headache and storing that crazy thing.
Yeah.
So
it sounds crazy.
It sounds crazy, but everything happens for a reason. I would have kept hauling that thing around if I hadn't gotten damaged. And my business didn't suffer from not having it. I would just refer somebody to a friend of mine at another production company that had it.
Right.
So now you kind of just got to follow what happens sometimes.
And Marcus, you're not dealing with having to store costumes and having to store props and things like that. But like, what do you do with music or with things that you've produced for one project? I have to imagine sometimes you produce 10 items for a particular project and they only use 3. What do you do to kind of innovate and repurpose things that you've been that you've produced that really are just kind of quote unquote in your closet, not really doing anything for you? Are the things that you've been able to discover how to repurpose things?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both, depending on the project. So if I'm working on a project for Disney, so to speak, there are things that are called deliverables, which you might know are things that you have to deliver. So there might be a certain amount of songs or pieces of music, and they might use all of it, or they might use none of it. But if it's a contractual agreement that they have the rights to use that or not use it as much as they want forever, I can't do anything else with that. And on the other side of it, for example, for trailers, I might create a custom track for a trailer But if it's not used for that trailer, because it's still a highly competitive business and only one person wins the trailer, usually a movie campaign can have 5 or 6 trailers, so there could be 5 or 6 sort of winners. But if you don't land any of those trailers, that music can be used for other trailer opportunities. If it's not like obviously, if it's like a Harry Potter trailer and it
Right.
themes for that, then you can only use it in any future Harry Potter. But even with things like that, there's always like another Harry Potter video game or movie in the universe. So there's
Right.
still opportunities where that might be able to be applied in the future. And what I've been able to do lately is sort of bridge the gap between the initial goal, which was to get in the studio with these big artists, and the trailer space, where what I've been doing. And if you go to my Instagram at Dafingaz, DAFINGAZ, you'll see literally this week I've been posting trailerizations of songs. So if you watch a movie trailer, you might hear, like a hip hop song or, a Beyonce song on the trailer. And that song was like an artist, a composer was given that song to sort of add the movie sort of element and vibe to it. And that's what I've been
Kind of
doing
combine them
lately,
into one, into
combine them
one.
into one. So it's called
Gotcha.
trailerizing or trailerizations. I've done several almost daily over the last week and posted those online, and that's been a great way to connect with these artist teams because it's another avenue. It's not just another hip hop beat or pop beat. It's sort of like it's brought to when you talk about growing and scaling. That's literally how you can in the music
Right.
industry grow and scale when you take a song like that and put it on this like bigger platform that
Right.
can be used in a blockbuster film.
And that's something that's really fascinating to me. Both of you are sharing stories of evolution in your businesses, and I definitely see that there's a lot. Everyone out there listening is trying to evolve and trying to grow their business into a place that's better for them. Um, I want to pose a question to both of you, and we'll take a turn with each one of you. What do you see in the next 6 to 12 months as something you want to evolve your business into? And then secondly, I'd love to hear, do you feel like you're going to need to sacrifice something or put something to the side in order to put your focus there? Marcus, we got you up. Why don't we start with you?
I'll start with what I've been doing. So I think last year my big goal was to land a Disney trailer, like Disney, Pixar, Marvel,
Right.
any Disney, Star Wars, any Disney property.
That's a huge
Um,
goal.
it's a huge goal. And, so should I be upset that I didn't land a Disney trailer last year, but I had the opportunity to create music for a Disney theme park. So
Wow.
I could have been so focused on this trailer, like I don't want to do anything other than try to get this Disney trailer. No, that was the foot in the door to become, a Disney part of the Disney family, to be mentioned, even considered among, great composers
Right.
who have worked on Disney property, like Disney products. So now I'm considered like a Disney composer
That's
just to be
awesome.
in there because of that. So I think a lot of times we are so focused on one thing, but we shouldn't be opposed to having other things. And like Carrie mentioned, if someone's going to Vegas, they've used her services, the Premier Showgirls before, they're going to call her up again. So now when you have brands like Disney on your resume, people expect a certain
Right.
level of service because Disney works with a certain level of talent for their products and services. So now, just by being associated with those brands, you're at another level. So for me this year, next 6 to 12 months would be to grow. It's hard to grow past Disney when it comes to entertainment. That's pretty much the growth where you want to get to. So it's
Right.
it's it's really the scaling side of it, doing more of
Right.
those opportunities for companies like Disney and other entertainment companies, and focusing on those ad campaigns and marketing and movie trailers and composing music for things like that, corporations, and like I said, museum exhibits, getting
Mark,
back to that space.
Marcus, that's honestly, it's super cool. I was just thinking about, I would have to imagine that at COVID, at the outbreak of COVID, and you lost all your revenue stream from the church and things like that, that had to have hurt pretty bad. And now in the short time later, 3 years later, 4 years later, you've been able to fully kind of rebound into something completely new and modified that's really utilizing more of your skill sets, more of your ability to produce, and impact more people.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I wouldn't be on this conversation. I'd be probably getting ready for rehearsal tonight, listening, trying to figure out the songs I need to work on for church on Sunday. And then the other part of that is definitely all thanks to, I have a wife and kids, so it's thanks to support from family. Because if you don't
Right.
have that support wherever you live, like in your house, to encourage your dreams and passions and goals, it's going to be hard. Not that it's impossible. It's going to be really hard to get
Right.
to those levels
I
that you're
love
trying.
it. I love it. Marcus, I honestly, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the rebound. I'm proud of what you've been doing. And Carrie, likewise, help us understand where are you envisioning? Is there something that you feel like you want to achieve this next year that might require a little bit of sacrifice? Maybe put less attention here so that you can get to this peak thing you want to do.
That's a tough one because as an artist, I always have 50 ideas floating around in my head. Well, I need to do this, or maybe I should do this, or it's so that's tough. Like I would like to travel more, and I have some ideas to travel more with a show that I produce here in
Interesting.
Vegas. So that's my goal. I'd like to travel and travel more and travel with the production, with the show.
That's definitely different than what you're doing now. Do you think that there's profitability in that?
Yes, traveling. Like I said, I do produce a show here in town, and that's something totally different than
Yeah.
that's a whole other conversation. But so that's my goal. And I always set a goal as to how many new clients I want every year, or
Right.
how many return clients am I going to get every year. So I always have those goals that I set for myself.
And Carrie,
So
what are you doing? Because a lot of artists struggle with this. And I would dare say that a lot of founders are visionaries, and visionaries sometimes have a hard time putting the practical steps in place to accomplish what they want to do. You know, do you feel like your business right now is staged or positioned to where you have an effective way to follow up with your repeat clients or your potential repeat clients to be able to introduce new themes, new topics, new things that you're going to do this year?
I do. I always have an email address, and those clients that are on social media, I absolutely 100% always follow them.
Awesome.
Always. 100, like that's my rule.
Good.
Find and on LinkedIn, find those people and follow them. So once I have an email address, it goes into my my constant contact email list.
Right.
And I do newsletters. I try to do
Awesome.
one every month, and I introduce new costumes, new props,
Very
something
cool.
new I've done for a client, a new, hey, I married my orange and my green costume this season. Look how great that looks.
Right.
So that's how I try to reach out and stay in contact with my clients, is social media, number one, and my emails.
Well, I've got a question for both of you. I'm curious, in particular, because of one of our sponsors today. I do want to ask: are either of you involved in connecting with other founders or other business operators to bounce ideas off of? Do you have like a mentor group or any kind of peer group that you go to kind of help you make sense of the thoughts in your heads and where you want to grow your business into, and actually help with that practicality of, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Are you a part of anything like that, Carrie?
I'm not a part of anything like that, but like I said, I work with a lot of production companies, event planners, DMCs, and some of them I have a relationship that goes back 10 years or even longer as to when I was working talent for them. So we all bounce ideas off of each other and be like, hey, are you doing this? Does this work for you? Hey, do you have this? I'm not sure if I want to invest money in that. Can I rent it from you? So I don't necessarily have a group like that's specifically for that, but I do. Because we all know each other. So it's not a formal
group. It's just a group of people that you worked with and things like that. Yeah. That's awesome. What about you, Marcus?
So I'll answer this three types of ways. So one, I usually bounce ideas off My wife, if like I have some ideas, I have a Facebook group
Perfect.
that I literally just started that has a couple hundred members. We're getting close to 700, I think, within a couple weeks. So it's growing quickly. That's
Awesome.
focused on like sync licensing and things like that. So whenever I have
Cool.
ideas, my wife might have suggestions, and 99% of the time, she's right, and the other 1% of the time, I'm wrong. So, actually, I like that. I never said that before. So yeah, 99% she's right, the other one I'm wrong. That's one. And then with the group itself, there are some people, business and entrepreneurs in that group. So we can toss questions up in there. And then I do have sort of an elite list of, I would say, three, actually four or five. Oh, we'll go up to five. Five of the top like engineers, producers who've worked on like blockbuster, like hit songs and things.
That's
And then
awesome.
that I would reach out to. I rarely use that. I might use it more. I got to start reaching out to these people, but that I can reach out to for advice. Like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, or what do you think about this? Can we hop on a chat? So I would consider that sort of like the mentors on the music industry side of things.
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. It's good to have industry related people. It's good to have people outside the industry sometimes too, telling you, I would never use that service.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes that's the most influential advice I get from my businesses. But one thing that I will say to both of you and to everyone listening, the common thread I find with almost every one of my podcast guests is they have someone or a group, a mentor or someone that they lean on every once in a while to kind of make sure, does this sound right? Is this working? Because when you're in your business, sometimes it's hard to see what's happening around your business, and you may miss a huge opportunity that just flew right past you that is kind of hard to stomach afterwards when you know that you just missed out on something big. One of the things that we've learned in the Captain's Council is that it's a group of founders and business operators who get together once a month, and they literally help each other with specific issues each person is dealing with. And it's so fascinating to see, because as founders and operators come together, even in disparate industries, like we are all three today in very different industries, sometimes it's that other person who gives you the best advice and says, well, that's something we face all the time in our business. Have you tried X? Have you tried Y? And it's these types of groups and these types of organizations that really bring power to each other as peers, as opposed to competitors, or I don't have time for this. And what I've found in these types of council groups is that most people that participate find value in the first 10 minutes of these types of groups, because they see that they are not alone, that these challenges that they're facing right now in their business are not unique to them, but other people have been able to overcome them. And how did they do it? This is what happens in the Captain's Council. That being said, everyone has their own way, their own industry way of doing things. I would suggest you look in and apply, because there are so many people that can benefit from finding help amongst their peers, finding that community that they've been needing. No matter what industry you're in, there's a community that can find you and help build your business and on a proper growth plane. So with that being said, I appreciate you, Marcus, and you, Carrie, for being on the show with us today. This has been a fantastic conversation. You never know where these things are going to go. And I am just so happy that you guys joined us today. Any last thoughts or advice from either of you before we close this off?
Yeah, I'll start. Two thoughts. One thought for Carrie. I know you said you're interested in doing traveling. If you want to consider going into, it's not exactly like traveling continentally, but if you want to consider going into the cruise line space, as cruises are opening back up, you would consider every cruise line has basically Broadway type shows. And if you're interested, I have a few friends in the cruise space, so definitely hit me up. For everyone watching,
love it. I love it. I love watching connections happen.
Yeah. Everyone watching, just follow on social media. Defingaz is the social media handle pretty much everywhere. DAFINGAZ. Defingaz.com is the website. If anyone's looking for music for any sort of projects, corporations, like I said, I do trailer music, trailerization, sync licensing. But if you're looking for music for anything you're working on, let me know.
I love it.
We'll have a chat.
Marcus, you're awesome. Carrie, any last thoughts?
I have so many thoughts right now.
That's a good thing.
Just go for it. I mean, I've made a million mistakes on this topic. I've canned stuff that I shouldn't have canned, and I kept stuff that just sat in my warehouse taking up space and costing me money when I should have canned it.
Yeah.
So you're always kind of looking into that crystal ball, and kind of you have to go with your gut decision sometimes.
I love it. I
And
love it.
just go with your gut.
Great advice from both of you. Go with your gut. Try to look into where things are going, and when all else fails, ask a peer. I think
100%.
that's some of the best advice I can ever give. Is just don't think you have to have the answer to everything on your own. Look at some people around you, and if you don't find people around you, consider joining an organization where you have fixed meeting times with people who know and understand your pains, because it is invaluable. And I appreciate all of you listening in today. Please don't hesitate to leave comments in the notes below. I know that both Marcus and Carrie and I are all eager to engage with anyone that has questions or wants to talk offline. And thank you so much for being here. We'll catch
Thank
you on
you.
the next
Thank you.
episode.